Hello and welcome to Let's Build Something. This is the machine learning live stream where we are building a project all the way from get-go all the way through to something that we actually have up in production. My name's Mike Chambers and I'm an AWS machine learning hero, member of the AWS community, I guess. And I also train people in AWS and machine learning as well. So thank you very much for joining this live stream, or if you're watching a recording afterwards as well, thank you so much for joining along with us. There's been a great deal of interest in this series, so thank you so much. As ever, joining me in this live stream, I've got Safdar. Safdar is a technical account manager for Amazon Web Services in Chicago, United States. Safdar, how are you?
I'm good.
Excellent stuff. And Safdar, you'll be checking the live chat for us, and you have been doing so already. So everybody who's joining in with the chat, please let us know where you're calling in from. People are doing that already. Brooke there from, I missed it. Brooke there from Florida. Hello, thank you. Good evening, welcome. We've got some others in there that you can throw up. Yes, hello from Nigeria, from the Delta states. We're in touch throughout the week and always want to make sure that we're going to come back and do the live stream. So hello, thank you for that. Texas, hello. Actually have to say, I have a bit of a soft spot for Texas. I've spent quite a bit of time there. It's one of my favorite places to be. Safdar, hello, welcome. Thank you for being with us again today. Seattle, hello. We are joined again by a very special guest. So I'm very pleased to welcome Martin. Martin's joining us on a live stream. Hello, Martin. You're the AWS Machine Learning User Group coordinator over in New York City.
That's great. Thanks, Mike, for having me. Pleasure to be here.
No, it's fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. We've seen each other before. I've attended the New York user group. So yeah, look, you know the vibe here is that we're going to get into building something. I'll get the code up on screen. We'll start to code away, and then we'll have a bit of a chat about the user group and what you're doing and how people can get involved and projects that you've done and that kind of thing as well. So it's always good to have a chat while we're doing these things, because especially when you're dealing with SageMaker, as we saw last week, things can take a long time to build, although that was entirely my fault. So last week was an interesting week, and I've had lots of people reach out to me since that stream, sort of saying it was great, that you just plowed forward regardless. If you didn't see it, then maybe you want to go and take a look. But there were a few problems, let's just say, with the way that things were being built. I did a couple of typos, and we had a couple of problems with some of the models, but it was real, right? So and we pushed forward, and we managed to get it working somewhat in the end. This week, what we're going to do is we're going to head back into SageMaker, and we're going to get SageMaker working for us, and we're going to get the endpoint working, and we're going to have some code. We're going to look at the way we can interact with the model that we have created, or that I've created in the past. So we'll get through that. What I just need to do here is I'm just going to throw up my console screen here. I'm currently in GitHub, but let's go back to my AWS account. I'm going to go into SageMaker, and I'm going to fire up my Jupyter Notebook environment. So I'm basically just I'm getting going because I don't want to have to wait for that. The notebook's not currently started. It's a great idea when you have your Jupyter Notebook to bring it up and tear it down whenever you're using it. Whenever you finished using it, you don't have to pay for it when it's not in use. There are little scripts you can run that will do this for you. But that's what I initially needed to do. That was just get this Jupyter Notebook up and running. So whilst that's happening, I will also just talk through a couple of things that we've got in GitHub here. So I'll just go over to GitHub. After the last lesson, or set, it's not really lesson, is it? After the last live stream, I created this version 4 here. Let me just get this out the way there and make this a bit bigger so you can see it. So this is episode 4 inside of the GitHub repository. A link to this should be beneath this stream. It will have to absolutely be updated later if I need to. Indonesia from Jakarta, hello. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Someone a little bit closer to my own time zone, so you'd be Saturday morning as well. So we span different days, let alone different time zones here. It's pretty exciting. So we have the notebooks that we were working through, and we've got the test images that we were working through as well. Now, in addition to that, we were looking at the model that I've created that we were going to use. So in a previous version of this stream, we created a model, we trained our model, and we used that last week to try and make inference. I think I've got that listed in here somewhere. If I just navigate back, maybe it was in episode 3. Yeah, we had this text file that was added. I'll look at that just a second. Let me just get to this. This text file was added with a link to a model location. There is an update to be made here, and I'll be making that in just a second. There is a model 2.tar.gz, and that model works much better. Last week we had problems. So Mike, FYI, I followed your steps and I was successful in getting it to work. Excellent. That is the end of the live stream, everybody. Thanks so much. That's all. We don't need to do anything more. No, that's really good news. I was successful in getting it to work, predicted with 89.8% accuracy. So look, that's pretty good, right? Especially with the amount of data that we had in our data set. That's pretty much what you could expect to get. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for letting us know. And yeah, shout out to the people who have been getting in touch with me throughout the week as well, who have also been following along and getting this to work. So yeah, it's awesome to see. We just need to get it working in the stream as well. So there is another version of the model, model2.tar.gz. I'll update this file so that that's easier to get to. You can download that if you don't want to train it yourself. You can put it up into the SageMaker environment and you'll see see how it works. That's the model that we're going to be using today because it just trained a bit better. I think in subsequent in streams that are coming up, we'll talk about how how we can get this a little bit more reliable than it's been up until this point. But that was somewhat expected, right? So I'm not too disappointed about that. So that model we're going to use, and we are going to make some inference code here. The Jupyter Notebook's up and running. So we'll just open that up. I'll go back to SageMaker. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an inference endpoint. But I just wanted to sort of set the scene there, give people an opportunity to join the stream as well, which you have. And hello, thank you for doing that. And let's have a chat, Martin. I just want to let everybody introduce yourself a little bit more. Tell us a little bit about what you do, what your interest is in machine learning as well, because you're there on the screen sitting very patiently. And I just want to say hello. So Martin, tell us a little bit more about yourself and
Sure.
and what your machine learning background is.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. My name is Martin Paradesi, and gosh, I've been working with machine learning since at least 2005, 2006, back when we didn't have deep learning. I got my master's thesis in machine learning back when support vector machines and random forests were all the rage. Try to stay up to breast with all the latest technologies. Learned about Deep Racer when it was first launched, or the first year. Participated in the New York Summit. Thankfully, a camera crew was there, and if you go to YouTube and check out the AWS Deep Racer TV New York episode, you'll find me in there somewhere.
Fantastic.
And then I felt like giving back to the community, so I started a machine learning meetup in New York City for AWS. We started off as a Deep Racer community, just so that we could hang out, learn more about Deep Racer, have some physical races. And since last year, we've expanded in scope as well. So now we have general machine learning talks. And due to the pandemic, we've had to make it more global. So now we've scaled it up to a global level where we have speakers such as Mike speak from Australia and other countries as well. And yeah, we are 600 folks strong, and highly encourage folks who want to learn about machine learning or Deep Racer or Deep Composer or Deep Lens to join our community as well.
Absolutely. That's been a really interesting side effect of the pandemic, hasn't it? Is that all of a sudden these local events become basically international events, and I think that's quite cool. And it was fantastic to be sort of connected with what is essentially quite a vibrant community that's New York centric, but obviously with the New York name as well, you can attract quite a large group. And how big has the group grown during the pandemic?
Yeah, so we've almost doubled in size. So now we're 600 people strong, and yeah, we have more people joining. Even though I haven't set up the next meetup, people are eager to join. Looks like because we have a steady stream of meetups, folks find it consistent that we're having consistent meetups.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. So we'll definitely put a link to is it a meetup page that you have?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll put a link to that beneath this video. Once it's settled, once the live stream's finished and we've got some opportunity, we'll put all the links in there. No, that's really cool. Look, we'll come back to you and we'll talk more about this. But join me now as we take a look at this screen here. I'm inside of AgeMaker. Sorry, AgeMaker. what is that? I'm inside SageMaker, Amazon SageMaker, and we're looking at endpoints. We're going to go ahead and create an endpoint using the model that we built a couple of weeks ago now. Yes, this is kind of what we attempted to do last week. Didn't work so well, but we're going to try and do it again. What we have over on the side here with Inference, again, let me just make it a little bit bigger. We have a couple of things already set up for us. So in models, you can see a model configuration that I have. You got the one from last week that we set up, which was LBS model 2. We also got LBS test 4. This is actually made prior. This was when I was testing the whole thing out and it worked fine. So this is a model that's trained with all exactly the same hyperparameters that we used before. It just works a little better. Now, this is sort of one of the interesting things about machine learning is that you try something twice and you might get a different outcome. Now, as you scale that up and as you get a lot more data and as you train for longer and as you throw more compute at it, it starts to become more deterministic. But with the amount of data that we've got, it's a little bit variable how well it's going to work. And yeah, super stoked that people are trying this out and they're getting good results from this. So we're going to use LBS test 4 as the model. If I come down to endpoint configurations, we have, again, 2 endpoint configurations, one that we were playing around with last week and one that works specifically with LBS test 4. If I just navigate into that, we can see some of the settings that we've got for that. Critically and crucially, let's have a look what we've got here. Data capture, we're not going to use that. It's this variance here where it actually picks up the actual model itself, and then it makes some determination about what kind of instance type we're going to use and instance count size. So how many instances are we going to use? And this is an ML M4X large. We talked about this last week. There is a cost involved with doing this. We have just got one instance selected at the moment. The point here, I suppose, is that just with this, even potentially through the console, you can launch a production quality endpoint to make inference with your model. So this sort of takes the complexity of the deployment of the infrastructure away and allows you to concentrate more on the machine learning and data science aspects of things. So that's the endpoint configuration. That was created with the same technique as we used in the last stream. So if you haven't seen that stream yet, it's available. Look in the channel. Actually, honestly, subscribe to this channel as well. And I say that as all YouTubers say that, but what I mean, why it's useful here is because you get the notifications of the live stream, and you get notifications for those videos that I'm making in between times as well. Anyway, so that's the endpoint configuration. So let's now go back to endpoints where we started this little bit, and go ahead and create an endpoint from that endpoint configuration. I have some more confidence that it's going to go quite smoothly this time. Let myself give myself a name here. So this name is actually something that you'll end up referencing later on in code. So it doesn't necessarily do well to make this really, really long. It's also unique for your account, probably in your region as well. So let's go ahead and I'm going to call this LBS. And the endpoint is something which is making the classification between, what is it, a tree and a cup of tea and a hot dog, or a tree, hot dog, tea, I think it is. So let's call it tree, dog, tea. After saying let's not make it too long, I then just made it quite long. Anyway, and I'm going to put -1 on because, as we saw last week, it's always good to iterate these things. So that's the name I've given it. Whatever, you can call it whatever you like. I'm using an existing endpoint configuration. We've just seen what that is. Here are the endpoint configurations I can choose. I'm going to choose LBS test 4. Again, that was made in this account with the same technique as we used in the last stream. I do have to click on select endpoint configuration. So once you've highlighted it in that radio button, you do then need to say this one. And then I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to click create endpoint. Now, at this point, Safdar, what do you reckon? Is this going to work? We feeling confident?
Sure.
We're feeling confident?
Yes,
All right,
we
cool.
should be
Excellent.
confident.
All right, so let's go ahead and click create endpoint, and let's say 5 to 7 minutes, which is what we were talking about last time. 5 to 7 minutes time. This little creating down here should be replaced. My pen's not working. Never mind. This little creating down here should be replaced with in service or something like that. We'll see it shortly. I'm going to sit here pressing this refresh button ferociously and frantically. So there we have it. All right, so let's step back from this now. We'll leave this here. We'll revisit it from time to time in the next 5 to 7 minutes. Martin, you mentioned there about Deep Racer. That seems to have been quite a common avenue for people coming into machine learning. But you've had to go with some of the other toys and stuff. I call them toys. I mean that in the most respectful way possible, but the other toys that AWS have come up with as well. And maybe just before we just have a question coming in. Please do pile your questions into the chat. Can you please summarize the steps of creating the model and endpoint configuration? Yeah, look, we'll look at that in just a second. I'll let Martin answer the question as well, just talking about the other stuff he's been working on. I will highlight though as well that has all been covered as well in previous streams. So for detail of that and to watch the actual process, then go take a look at that. But yeah, look, in just a moment, we'll sort of step through what those things were. We won't actually do it now because we don't necessarily have time, but we'll step through what that process was. But Martin, you know what I'm talking about. You've been playing around with with all of the AWS toys, right? All the deep toys, if I can call them that.
Sure. So AWS has a good suite of educational tools like Deep Lens, Deep Racer, and Deep Composer. And I've had the opportunity to play with Deep Racer and Deep Composer recently, but I've also had worked with Deep Lens in the past. But last year, I started a whole YouTube series where each week I would take a piece of classical music. Think of any famous classical pianist or violinist or composer, and I take their piece and pass it through Deep Composer algorithms and generate different genre of music. So I started all the way back in February, and I finished my last video the week before reInvent of 2020. So feel free to check it out. It's on my YouTube channel. There's a whole playlist dedicated to that. So if you have a favorite piece of classical music and wondering what Deep Composer generated, that's a good place to look at.
Yeah, and you were selling yourself short there a little bit as well. You actually you appear to also be able to play piano, so
Yes.
we get to see your piano playing skills in action. So there's not everybody can do this stuff. So you're using Deep Composer, which is the keyboard that was announced at reInvent 2019, was it? Yeah.
That's right.
And you're using that to as an input. And then Deep Composer uses generative adversarial networks, I think it is, to basically, which is we can unpack and talk about that in a future stream, to create a backing track essentially for the music.
Yeah. So it basically takes your input melody that is from the keyboard and then adds accompaniments. Like it can add drums, it can add a bass layer and other layers, and it will generate a beautiful composition based on your input melody.
You're very generous to say it's a beautiful composition. I think
Well, utilize that.
It's an interesting composition, and knowing how it was created, it's pretty cool. And playing around with it further, I'm sure you can get better results. It's unfair to suggest that people should go there and listen to this as like their music playlist that they want to sort of relax to, right? But it is super interesting. Yeah, I'm taking nothing away from the technology. It's amazing, but it's yeah. Go and have a play around with Deep Composer. You can actually use it in the console, right? You don't actually need the keyboard from AWS to actually make this work. I think you can do it in the console as well, right? Costa
That's
Rica,
right, with the keyboard. Yeah.
And you can actually plug in any MIDI keyboard, is my understanding as well. So you can, if you've already got a MIDI keyboard which works by a USB, I think you plug it in. You've got access with Chrome, I think it is, and you can use it in that way. So that's pretty cool. And as I mentioned briefly then, but hello Costa Rica, great to have you on board. Thank you for being here this evening. So if we can just jump back into the AWS console, guess what? I mean, we shouldn't be too surprised by this, but look, it's in service. Can I have a little round of celebration for the fact that we actually managed to get this right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's now see if we can make inference with it. So we have an endpoint here, which is fantastic. Let's go over to the code and start having a go at this. So what I might do here is just to keep things. Should I make a LBS EP? Yeah, let's make a new folder. Let's keep it sort of structured the way it was. Let's rename this folder to LBS EP5 because we are now on episode 5. How exciting is that? Let's jump into that folder and let's just start from scratch here. We're going to create a Jupyter notebook. We're going to use that endpoint to make inference. It's probably worth pointing out at this point, again, we kind of touched on it before, the endpoint does cost on a time basis. It doesn't cost on a number of inference basis. It costs on a time basis. So it is currently costing a small amount, but it is costing. And I was talking to someone during the week actually about their experimentations too. Just make sure that you turn it off when you've finished, and the cost should be reasonably manageable. So let's go ahead and say new. I'm just going to go ahead and create a Conda Python 3. So a Python 3 notebook. So this is selecting the kernel that we're using, which basically talks to the libraries that we're going to have available to us inside of this notebook. And we don't need to get anything in particular that's special. We're going to be using Boto 3, so Python and Boto 3 to make this work. So as ever, let's try and make this look kind of nice. Always have connection failed. It's always. But then as soon as you say okay, it comes back and it's fine. I have no idea why that happens. If anybody knows, reach out, let me know. But just coming up to the top corner up here, and you see kernel idle. That basically means it's loaded and it's waiting to go. Let's go ahead, and I've made this cell a markdown cell, so I'm going to put hash in front of it. And so let's make inference. Have I spelled inference correctly? Someone will tell me. Okay, so we've got, the idea with the Jupyter Notebook is you're supposed to sort of like add some level of documentation and the rest of it in. I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me write verbose documentation. So let's go ahead and import the Boto 3 library. Shift Enter is the shortcut I'm going to use. Just runs the cell. You can see that it's got the asterisk at the side, and now a number 1 means it has actually loaded. So that's great. Let's go quickly and make inference, just like we did last week. So client. So we're getting ourselves the Boto client. Who is riding a motorbike? That's very exciting. Are you riding a motorbike, Safdar? Okay, no one's gonna.
Somebody is doing it.
Okay, no worries. The Chicago bikie gangs are out in force.
Exactly.
So we're making a Boto 3 client. So this is just normal Boto 3 code here. And the key here is that we want to use SageMaker runtime. Don't let me forget that we were asked to have a quick recap about how this was made up until this point. I will get to that as well. I haven't forgotten. So shift enter on that. I should now have a client object, which is, or now it's finished running, a client object, Python object, which has connected to the SageMaker runtime engine. So this is SageMaker runtime, not SageMaker. We're not configuring SageMaker, we're using SageMaker. So basically, let's just do the quick test on here. We need to basically grab the binary object, which is the image that we had. So if you look back here, I'm just going to go back to this back tab and go to episode 4. We've got 3 test images here. I actually also have these on my local machine. Probably the easiest way to get this into the episode 5 folder here is just to upload them. So I'm going to upload from the desktop these 3 images. Open up those, upload, and upload. Now, once we finish this live stream, the first thing I do is that I check this into GitHub. So you'll have all of this available. So no need to necessarily do this now if you don't want to, but all the files will be there. All right, so we've got these files locally. Let's load it up. So I've got that file available to me when I'm making my inference. So I basically need to have that image available as a binary object. So I'm just going to do basic Python here to open up this file. I need to remind myself what it's called, but it's test_number.jpg, test_number.jpg. It is JPG and not JPEG. It is, yes, just making sure. So once we've opened that up, we do need to open it up as a binary. So read binary. Oops, read binary, not binary. Read binary. So we've got a binary object coming in, and we're going to say data equals f.read. I think it is. Type. So with these 2 lines of code, we open up the object, we grab the binary data out, and then we load that binary data into an object called data. So that's essentially what we're doing there. Just Python, nothing to do with machine learning particularly. And now we've got the data in a format that we can send to the SageMaker endpoint. So let's say response equals, and then we're going to go for a client, which is a client that we had up here. And we're going to say invoke under endpoint, which is the command that we're going to use essentially on the client to make the prediction. And then we have to send it a couple of values here. So the first thing we're going to send it is the endpoint name. Capitalization matters with these things. And our endpoint name, well, we set it before, and now I don't remember what it was. So let's just go back to SageMaker. I'm going to open this up so we can see it a bit better. Here it is, LBS tree hot dog T1. And so we'll come back to our, I've copied that. I'm going to come back here, paste it in here. Whoops, what happened? Too much. I copied all of that stuff above as well. That's better. Let's paste that in. That's much better. And then the other thing we need to do is we need to pass the data. So we're going to say body equals data, and that's all we should need to do. So let's make that a little bit tidier. Shift enter on that, and we've made our prediction. And the prediction result is stored inside of this response object that we have here. And we need to grab that data out. Now, it doesn't arrive as necessarily a sort of an easy to use string. If I was just to print that out, let's actually do a print statement and say print this response. Then we get that. I'm looking really closely at that. There's no actual way that you can actually get the answer out of this because it's basically just metadata about this particular response object. It's telling us a little bit about what's inside of a stream. So you've actually got a streaming body here. And so we just have to grab this data out of the streaming body. And this is the little hiccup that a lot of people get when they're making this code, is that they need to do this next piece of code essentially to get this out. So what we're going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm checking along with my notes. So we're going to grab the results out of it, and we're going to use JSON loads. So we do need to load the JSON libraries. I'm just going to put that up at the top here. Import JSON, rerun that. So JSON loads is JSON load a string. Now we don't have a string yet, so we're going to grab the string out of that stream, and we do that by taking our response object. And then inside of the response object, we have a body, and then we have to read that, which is similar to what we did above here. So read that and decode it as well. I don't pretend that I'm not looking at notes at the same time, right? I'm not like some genius that doesn't have any need for documentation. So we need to decode it as well. And so that should then give us what we want. So if I run that, basically, I've done a couple of steps in one go. Am I a developer? Not really. Do I hack code together? Yes, it kind of works. So we are getting the results out of the JSON object, which we're getting from the body after we've decoded it and after we've read it from the stream. Done, all in one go. So now let's print out the results. Come on now, we can do this. Shift enter. Those are the results. So for the first image in our data set, these are the results that have come back. Does that look good? I think that looks good. I think that looks good. Let's have a look. I don't know. Let's have a look at what the image is for test one. Test one is a hot dog. Now, let's take a look at what we've got coming back here. So this is the image that we're testing with. These are the results that we've got come back. We've essentially got this array of 3 values. In order to actually know what this actually means, we need to actually go back to our original training data set and remind ourselves the labels that we used. Because with machine learning, actually, this is the secret about machine learning, one of them. Machine learning only deals with numbers. That's all it deals with is numbers. It's just patterns of numbers and doing things. So we have to sort of overlay the language on top of it. So let's go back to, let's build something. Let's go back to one of the earlier episodes, I think episode 2, where we actually put the training data sets together. I'm going to go and grab the validation list because it's kind of short, and I'm just going to extract it from here. Really, this is the kind of thing, if I'm doing a project, I should have this noted in my documentation around this project already. But if we have a look in here, we've got the data set that we've got here. The first row is the IDs. The second row, column, the first column is the IDs. The second column are the labels, and the third column are the file names. And so from this, I can basically infer what my labeling is. 0 is for tree, 1 is for hot dog, 2 is for tea. So again, I did this last week as well, but let's make sure that we know this. So I'm just going to make a note here in Markdown. I'm going to say 0 is for I read things out and then never remember what I just read out. So 0 is for tree, 1 is for hot dog, 2 is for tea. So 0 is for tree, 1 is for hot dog, and 2 is for tea. And so that's the index position in this list here. And you can see already that I'm not concerned because I can see it's got it right. So that's our little notes here. So all right, let's just say for a second that we don't know, or I mean, we obviously can see which is the highest value here. Well, hopefully you can anyway. This is actually an incredibly small number. This is a relatively small number, and this is nearly 1. But let's write some code here. Let's write some code to actually make this determination for us. And so I'm going off script now a little bit. So I'm going to import NumPy as NP. That's the sort of common parlance that we use for NumPy. NumPy is basically a mathematical library for Python. It's used extensively. Let me import that. And the thing I'm going to use from NumPy is the, what is it? What am I going to use? I'm going to use the thing that gets the largest value out. Argmax is what I'm going to use. So if I just do this here and do np argmax and pass in the results that I've got, it will give us the index value of the largest thing. So it's going to be what, 1, I think. There we go, 1. Yeah. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. It's found the highest value for us without us having to look. So we can go one step further than this. So let's go one step further than this. Let's actually create a labels list of our own. And we're going to say that in position 1 is tree, position 2 is hot dog, and position 3 is tea. We've now created our own list, and we're going to put this little code together now so that we can say, okay, let's actually put all this together in one go. What can we do here? We can make this a bit better. I'm hacking away code here. Let's say that our image is going to be a particular string. So this is going to be test_1.jpg. So that's our image name, essentially. So it's not actually the image, it's the image name. So let's say that. Get rid of that line there. Okay, so we've got the image name. What do we have to do? After we've got the image, we have to load it in. So we're going to just copy this code. This is one of the problems with Jupyter Notebooks, is that people can hack around with code this horribly. Anyway, let's replace that variable name in there. So now we've got some, piece of code that we can run where we've loads our data into data. We're then going to go ahead and go and grab our response. So we're doing this all in one cell. Why not? You can split this up as you like. And so that's going to grab our image, load it in, get our response. And then we're going to do an argmax on the results. So the prediction pred equals argmax on the results. And then we can go ahead and print out the answer from our labels. We get labels here. And we're going to say whereabouts in the labels we're going to ask for this prediction that's come back. How's that? Everybody follow that? So basically we're grabbing the image name as a string, we're opening up that object, we're passing it in to go and get response from our endpoint. We're then finding out what the prediction is in a numerical form, and then we're going to hopefully print the label out. So we're actually getting an actual answer out rather than just a number. If that makes sense.
So you want to have the results also captured over here?
Say that again, sorry, Safdar.
Results. I think we can capture the results also under the response, like JSON file read.
Ah, yes, you're absolutely right. Thank you, Safdar. Thank you. You mean we haven't actually got this whole line of code in here?
Exactly. Yeah. Got it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Very much
Awesome.
appreciated. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. And we have the answer coming out as hot dog. So test one is a hot dog. Yes, it is a hot dog. Excellent. Let's go ahead and have a go with test two. We're going to run that. It says the answer is T. I'm a little nervous. Let's go back and how do I find these? Let's go back to episode 5. T. It's an image of a cup of tea. Fantastic. And let's just do one more test here and say test with 3. It says tree. And obviously at this point, I'm feeling very confident that if we go to test 3, it is actually a picture of a tree. Thank you very much. And there you go. It's actually worked. So that's the code. And that's basically where we wanted to get to last week. Couple of other things to basically talk about, but we'll get to that in just a moment. I think we're going to reflect here and actually like take stock of the fact that we've actually got something that works. Also noticing there's things coming in. Angela, hello everyone. Hello. Let us know where you're from. Have you already told us where you're from? I don't know where you're from. Let us know where you're from. There's some code. It works. Fantastic. Safdar, thanks for that, pointing that out as well. And I'll make sure that that code gets put up into the repository. Martin, let's come back to you as well now. And we've seen enough of me talking about code and bashing away on things. In terms of meetup topics and things, what are the kinds of things that you end up going to, or is it everything that covers machine learning?
So we've expanded our scope to cover everything in machine learning. We had a guest speaker who gave a survey of unsupervised and supervised learning algorithms. So we start with ML 101 and we go all the way to 400 or 500 if folks are interested as well.
Excellent. And can you look and can you watch previous stream when you've been streaming them? Can you watch previous streams, or do we need to make sure that we're there and watching?
Well, so I usually empower the speakers to share it within their own community, and it gives them a platform to share their own content as well.
Absolutely.
So I usually record it and put it on a web hosting platform and send the link to the speakers. And if they feel empowered to do so, they can do so.
So when I was on that when I was on the meetup, I actually put a project together where I did image classification, and we were looking for object detection. We were looking for the Statue of Liberty. I think that's what we ended up doing. So and my thing that I'd done there is I'd created a I haven't been to New York this year, strangely. For some reason, I can't get there. But I had put together a data set using images that I'd found on the web, actually 3D models of the Statue of Liberty, and then created a synthetic data set of the Statue of Liberty, and found that it actually worked with images in the real world, which was a bit of an experiment. I kind of enjoyed that. I think I've got videos up on similar topics. I'm not sure that video is up, but I do have a copy of it somewhere. So maybe I should put that up and then put a link to that beneath this live stream. That was a fun session. That was a fun session.
It was.
For sure. All righty. Okay, so we have some questions coming in here, and we had that question just to sort of recap how we'd kind of got to this point. I think, what was it? Can you please summarize the steps of creating the model and endpoint configuration? So now I'm sort of like rereading that as well. I think probably what you mean by that is in relation to SageMaker itself. So not training, but how it was made inside of SageMaker. And I did that using the SageMaker console. So let's come back here. We go down to Inference, and you're absolutely right. In order to actually be able to put a model into production, if you like, the 3 steps are, well, obviously you need to train a model in the first place. And once you've got your model trained, it's then available to be sort of registered, if you like, registered as a model inside of SageMaker. And then you have to create your endpoint configuration, and then you go ahead and create the endpoint. So if you click on models over on the left-hand side, you can see here we were in here just a moment ago, and we popped into here so we could see what it looked like in here. But let's go ahead and sort of just briefly look at what the options are. If I click create model, you give it a model name. You then have to define the container that you want to use. So under the hood, SageMaker is very container based. So it's very Docker based. And there are lots of managed Docker containers which the SageMaker team have put together to help us be able to do all the things that we want to do, including inference and training. So it's basically saying, what container definition do you want? And we used the built-in algorithms to train our model. So we just selected this top one here. You then get other options. So do you want to just have a single model, or do you want to have multiple models? We just wanted a single model. What we needed to do, and this is one of the things that we forgot to do last time around, was, well, actually we did this one. We need the actual model reference. So where essentially inside of the Elastic container registry is the Docker image that we want. And you get that from the training job. So if you've trained it in SageMaker, have a look in the training job, it's right in there, and we pasted that in here. Then you needed, this is the bit I forgot last time, the first time I did it. You actually do need to tell it where the model is. So when you finish training, it will put your model inside of an S3 bucket that you denote where that's going to be. So you need to tell the endpoint configuration here, sorry, the model configuration here where it is. So we pasted that in there. And that was pretty much it. There are other options about network accessibility and tagging and all that kind of stuff that you can have a look at. But we went ahead and just created that model. So I'm just going to cancel out of that. Then we went and created an endpoint configuration. Now you can actually create an endpoint configuration in the console as part of the endpoint build, or you can build it explicitly here. So let's have a look at endpoint configuration, create endpoint configuration. Again, you need to give it a name. These things, both of these things we're looking at, the model and the endpoint configuration, it's just config. It's just a set of data which lives somewhere inside of AWS. It's not doing anything, it doesn't cost anything. You're just putting together some configuration information. So we have our configuration name that we want to call it. That's just for our own reference. That's never going to be seen outside. We've got option for encryption and the like. We've got options for asynchronous invocation configuration here. So you can say the max concurrent invocations per instance, these types of things. So we get to say basically how big this is going to be. There are options in here that we haven't gone into and we didn't go into, but there are things, for example, like data capture, where when someone sends information to the endpoint for inference, you can then also capture that. You don't, your code is unlike, because your code is, I mean, in this case, it's all built-in code from AWS. So we basically, if someone sends an image, as we've just done, that kind of disappears off into the ether. But if you want to be able to track the performance, you might also want to keep some of the data that's been sent by the user of the endpoint. So you can do that optionally. Then we have this production variants. This is where we choose our model. So you can just click add model and choose a model from your environment. Model obviously that we just set up. Again, we're setting the endpoint configuration here, and that's all that's inside of an endpoint configuration. And so that's the two steps, I guess, that we didn't do today. And then it's just a case of going to endpoints and creating your endpoint from that endpoint configuration. And here, lo, it works. And what we've just looked at there essentially is the way of using Python to then connect to that endpoint and make inference. Now, I'm also going to show you how to do it a different way. And I'm going to show you this. This is a nice little quick test, essentially, to see if everything's working without having to have even a Jupyter notebook. Do you know what? I'm going off script here. I'm going to do this with Cloud Shell. I've never done this in Cloud Shell before, so we'll see if this works. But in the AWS console, just at the top here, there is this little button here, which is called Cloud Shell. If I click on that, it will open up a command line inside of my AWS environment. You can see I've never used it in this account before. So it's got this welcome. So you get 1 GB of storage. This was announced last reInvent. 1 GB of storage. You've got a bunch of stuff already on there, like the AWS CLI and Python and stuff. So let's go ahead and close that and it does take a few seconds essentially to spin this up. And we'll wait for it to do that. Safdar, what are your thoughts on Cloud Shell? Do you think it's one of the underrated little nuggets of goodness inside of the console?
No,
Of course
it's
you do.
I think it has been used now. It's getting basically attention because of the features and the ease of use which you mentioned. So I'm sure it's going to be used more as the people get awareness around that.
Mm. And I'm using it here. I could obviously use the command line on my local machine, but that's because I've configured the command line on my local machine. If you haven't, so if you're using a computer at a school or a college, or you just don't want to install the command line, then it's just an option, right? And it means that in this case, it's an easy and quick way to test what we've done. You just have to know how to invoke the SageMaker runtime endpoint on the command line, which is honestly something that I have written permanently in a little note that I have in my notes, because I can never remember how to do it, but it's super useful to do. And so there you go. Martin, you use the Cloud Shell at all? Are you a Cloud Shell fan?
I have not used it, unfortunately. I should
That's
use
right.
it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I often think that for people who have using AWS for some time, they're like, I've got command line on my machine. Why would I do anything else? Because it does take a few seconds to work. But hey, here is potentially a reason why. Let's go full screen on that. Let's make this bigger if I can. I don't know if it looks like that's the biggest it's going to get. You can probably read that. And so yeah, the command line here. I can do all my Linuxy things. Obviously, there's not much going on in here. But I can also use the AWS command line. So if I do AWS S3 LS, for example, then that's going to list my S3 buckets. Taking a short moment, and there are the buckets that we've got in this account. So how do I clear? Is that what it? Yeah, let's go back to the top. So let's now do the SageMaker inference. Right, and to do this, I've just realized I'm going to have to upload a file to this environment, which is not something I've done before, but I think I can do it. Yes, actions, upload file. This is very exciting. Select file. We're going to go to the desktop, and I'm just going to select T. Just going to do one. So test image 2, upload that, and it's up and it's uploaded. It's very exciting. Okay, cool. So if I do an ls now, whoops, there it is. It's uploaded into the environment. So I can say AWS SageMaker, SageMaker, and don't forget it's the SageMaker runtime. Again, because we're not configuring SageMaker, we're using SageMaker. And I can say invoke endpoint, which again, it's the same command structure essentially as we used when we were looking at Python. And we then have to send it to the endpoint name. And of course, I don't remember what that is. So let's go back to SageMaker, have a look at endpoints LBS. There we go. Exactly the same issue as I had last time. So let's just copy that. I'm presuming I can paste well into here. So let's have a paste. Yes, paste that in there. No worries. I'm going to you could set the region. I don't think I need to set the region because we are in the region here. Let's try not setting the region. We then have to send in the data, and to do that we do this command here. So it's a file, and we're using file binary file location on my machine, and we're in the right folder already. So we're going to say test_2.jpg. And then if we ran this, it wouldn't actually show us the results. We need to give it the name of an output file. So I'm going to say output.txt. Basically, what this is going to do is it's now going to run the endpoint run the endpoint inference on the endpoint, and put the output into this text file. At least that's what I hope it's going to do. Let's hit enter on that, see what happens. Hopefully all the permissions are okay. And so this is the response back that we would expect. It's basically giving us this sort of MIME type kind of like little response. It has now put the output, the response in output. So if I just do a list, there's the output text file there. So I can use cat output. Tab complete also works in here, by the way. Hit enter on that, and we can see there we've got the output from our from our inference, and we can see it's not 0, it's not 1, it is 2. Obviously, we don't have all that other code in here, but if we go back and remind ourselves from here, number 2 is the cup of tea, which is, of course, what we used for that. So that's just a quick way, another way to make inference. And you can do that from the command on your own machine. You can do that with Cloud Shell. I've just done that here because it just makes it super easy. And it's a nice little tool inside of AWS. There you go. So Martin, talk to us about the next meetup. Have you got one planned yet?
No, I'm planning something tentatively for early November. and it's going to be
Yeah,
a fantastic speaker. So details to be announced soon.
excellent. And we will keep an eye on that, and we'll have a link to that in the notes below us here. Obviously, I'm assuming there's some kind of anticipation getting ready for reInvent going on. I'm assuming you're going to reInvent.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, you're looking forward to that. And so, I mean, where you're in New York City, aren't you? So it's a little flight on the way over there to get there. Anything that you are um, what are you looking forward to about reInvent? That's a very open question.
Yeah, so this would technically be my sixth reinvent, I believe. And
Amazing.
I've last year I missed the human connection, like just meeting with random folks, getting to know their work, the awesome stuff they do, and also sharing my knowledge. I guess that's something I've missed a lot, and I'm looking forward to reconnecting with people and actually having some sense of normality back
Mm.
in my life.
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah, absolutely. That would be good. Yeah, the people connection part, absolutely 100%. Um, I am on record many times as having said this. I have never been to a single session at reInvent. I always just spend my time talking to people. So it's my opportunity to meet people. I mean, there's a whole set of people that I only know from being at reInvent, and so I just want to reconnect with those people. However, it seems highly unlikely that I'll be able to go this year. So that's just the way it is. Safdar, are you getting to go to reInvent this year?
No, I am not actually. I have some projects to complete, so it will be pretty tight actually.
Yeah, not everybody can go. Hey, so it's you and me will be. Well, hey, that's okay. That means that we can still connect, like with this. I am wondering how many people go to reInvent and then just sort of disappear into a bubble of reinventness, and I won't be able to get in touch with them because they'll be wandering the hallways of Vegas,
Correct.
and I, I won't get to speak to them. But no, that's cool. Hey, look, I think we've kind of reached a point now where we've managed to deliver something successfully in this stream. Somewhat, it is what I wanted to do last time, but we've seen it work. Just to address that again, last time that model just wasn't a good version of what we had, but it works now. I'll make sure that you've got access to that through S3. If you look at the GitHub repository for this for these sessions, you'll have access to a link so that you can go ahead and download that and build it, pull it into your own version of this if you want to do it. I've got other people as well who are watching this live stream after it's been recorded and gone up. They're working on their own projects, which are kind of similar. Reach out. Let me know. Put a comment below so that let everybody else know what you're doing. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn, and always happy to chat midweek as well and talk to you about your projects. So that's really exciting too. Where to go from here? Now, just talking about what the plans were with this session, we haven't sort of recapped that. We are making a mobile-based application where so we're going to use some code on a phone, which is actually going to make inference from the endpoint that we've just created. Now, I'm going to shut that endpoint down shortly because I don't want to have to pay for it for the whole week with no one using it. But we're going to create a solution where we're actually making inference on that endpoint from the outside world. This is the next piece, right? So everything that we're doing here, we're making inference internally with our own inside this account that I'm working in. You've seen I did that on the command line inside of the account in the Jupyter Notebook inside of the account. How do we get this amazing world beating application out to the outside world? That's what we're going to look at next week. Martin, how do people get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you and talk about your projects, what you're doing with all of the deep toys and with the New York user group as well?
Yes, so I can be reached in multiple ways. First, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or on meetup.com. Send me messages. I always constantly check them. Or email me. And my email is simple, my first name dot last name at gmail.com.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you for that. And look, there's another question that just popped in now. Please do just keep sending your questions in. We're sort of reaching the end of time now. Connect with me on LinkedIn as well, and I'm more than happy to sort of jump on a call and talk to you about that. Safdar, much going on this week for you?
Yeah, actually, the weather is getting better in Chicago, at least a little bit better. So I have plans to, go to some park or spend some time with my family. So hopefully it stays same. So
Excellent.
that's fine.
Well, we're looking towards the skies here. We've had a few storms recently. Hopefully
Oh,
today will be a little bit calmer. But as you know, I've recently purchased a 3D printer, and things are getting a little out of hand here. There's a lot of things being printed. So yeah, maybe we'll have to try to figure out a way that we can actually meld together machine learning and 3D printing. That would be amazing. That will
awesome.
happen. Lego sorting robots are
Wow.
imminent, I feel. So yeah. Okay, cool. Well, look, thanks everybody for watching along. Martin, thank you so much for being here. Safdar, thank you so much for being here. Have a safe week, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.